Okay, everybody, welcome to September. It's September 4th, and this is the LF Decentralized Trust Technical Advisory Council meeting. As everybody on the call is already aware, because you've been on this call before, there are two things that we have to abide by. The first is the antitrust policy. So we need to be aware of and not participate in any activities that are prohibited under any antitrust and competition laws across the world. And then the second thing that we have to abide by is our code of conduct. It is linked here in the agenda. Everybody should just be aware that it is there and that we should treat each other with respect. All right, so for announcements today, we have our standard Dev Weekly developer newsletter that goes out each Friday. If you do have something that you would like to include in that newsletter, please do leave a comment on the wiki page here that is linked in the agenda. Any other announcements that anybody has or would like to make today? Okay, no other announcements for today then. So for quarterly reports, we do have a long list of quarterly reports. Some of these have been on the list for more than a couple weeks, so if you haven't had a chance, please do take a look at those and review them. I think Cacti was the only one that was even close to being possible to merge. We just needed one more reviewer, but the other ones maybe had one or two reviewers each, if any. So please do have a look at those. And it's, as I mentioned, I think a couple weeks back, really important for us to be on top of these so that our projects know that the TAC is interested in what they're doing and is aware of what they're doing. So yeah, I think that's it for quarterly reports, unless anybody has any comments specifically on any of these reports that have been submitted. Okay, so then we do have a number of overdue reports. Arun, I did see you were putting some messages out there on Discord regarding the overdue reports. So thank you for that, and hopefully we'll be getting those reports coming in. I know we have a couple of note taker apps out here that are trying to join. Just a reminder, we don't need note taker apps because these meetings are being recorded and they are available for everybody to have a look at after the fact. So if you are somebody who has a note taker app trying to join these calls, please stop because we will remove you. That's for everybody else that is listening to this call, not for the folks that are on the call at the moment. We do have some upcoming reports. The first one that we have, which is due today, is the Loch Ness report. So we'll hopefully see that one coming in. And then the Hyro report is due next week. So those are all of the reports that we have. Any questions or comments on those? Okay, so then for discussion, we have some items here. The first one, I didn't see enough approvals on the defining adopters PR. So we do need to have a formal vote here in the TAC call. So last week, one of the things that we added was about being able to have folks remove their adopter information from the adopters file. And so therefore, that was added. And Peter also had a comment that we did also add to the piece of information that said it's not necessarily only the adopters who can remove it, but if it makes it easier for the adopters to talk to a maintainer, the maintainers can also put in the pull request for that. So those were the changes specifically. But yeah, I think that's that's it for the adopters. So hopefully we're ready for a vote on that one and we can go forward. Any questions or comments?
Do I need to make a motion?
If there's no questions and comments, then yes, we will get to that. Okay, Diane, let's go ahead and have you make a motion and we can get a second.
I'd like to make a motion to pass this.
All right.
Seconded.
Thank you, Marcus.
Okay, in the matter before the TAC, the adoption of create the definition of an adopters thingamabob. All voting members of the TAC who agree, please say aye.
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 All of those against, please say nay. All of those who wish to abstain, please say abstain. Motion passes on a voice vote. Congratulations.
All right,
Thanks.
great. Thanks, Ray. So we'll get that one merged here. I think it had some DCO problems that I'm not sure why it has DCO problems because they are signed off. So we'll have to look at that, right? So the next item that is on the agenda here is the Maintainer Summit planning. There is a plan to have a Maintainer Summit similar to what we had last year, where we get the maintainer together on January 26th and 27th in New York City. I believe that is the days before the member summit. And so wanted to have a conversation with the TAC about that, talk about what it should look like and, you know, what sort of agenda we might want to have if we have any thing there. And David, please do add anything that I missed that you might want to talk about.
Yeah, thanks for that. So yeah, as you said, this is being planned for right before the member summit, which will also be in the area. We don't have the exact locations yet, but the exact location to come soon. But just to let you know, we do have the date and the general location set, so you can start thinking about this if you'd like to attend, and we'd certainly like all the TAC members and all the maintainers to attend. One thing that we did at the last Maintainer Days in 2024 that we're going to do again this year is that if you do come for them Maintainer Days, maintainers are also going to be invited to the member summit. I think that worked well for everybody before. I think the other members, enjoy the opportunity to get a chance to talk to the maintainers of the projects, and the maintainers of the projects also likewise. We found last time got value out of talking to the member companies that are using the different projects. So just be aware, if you are interested in attending Maintainer Days, you could also stay that week and attend the member summit. And again, details about both of those, the exact locations will be coming. And then, yeah, beyond just talking about that this is going to happen, just wanted to see if anybody had comments, ideas, suggestions about what to do with the time there. So happy to hear, any ideas or thoughts people might have.
Well, coming off the heels of adopting the adopters definitions, maybe some like a workshopping the idea of creating more connectivity with end users for our projects.
That's great.
Sort of maybe just to spearhead going into the member summit, creating some momentum for end user participation in the projects. So we could do maybe something in both sessions, the maintainer summit and the member summit.
Yeah, I like that. I like that. Yeah, especially cues us or tease us up to then meet some of the users at member summit. That's great. Good idea.
I guess from my side, just being as I went to the last one last year, I think one of the things that I would benefit, I think might attract more maintainers, is maybe some hands-on workshops. I think last time it was a lot of different tracks and different presentations of the tools available and the projects available. And I think the maintainers that were there presented the different projects. but maybe having a bit more extended time if we can for actually getting hands-on on those sort of things, I think would be useful to attract people. But yeah, that's my only idea.
Okay. So hands-on on other projects or the tools available to projects, or do you have ideas like what type of workshop would you like to see?
I think other projects. I think sometimes we're like in silos. I think the
Mhm.
maintainers only work on their own projects
Yeah.
because of time and priority. But it gives an experience. I think we did an ecosystem mapping last time.
Mhm.
Effort and maybe getting hands-on, you get a better understanding of some of these projects.
Agreed. And I think that would be great as well. And, we want to see, and I think there's a lot of opportunity to see more cross collaboration across projects. So yeah, if there's a way to maybe facilitate that with some of these workshops. Okay, I like that idea.
So along that ideas under the Hyro project, we now have the solo sub project that allows you to boot up a small Hyro network to do development work on. And I know Hendrik isn't here. So I think that might be a good thing to get everybody familiar with how to use the Hyro project itself. So that I'd happily throw that under the bus for a workshop.
Okay, great. I'm just taking some notes. That's great. And again, this is like 2 days. It's, by design for anybody who hasn't gone to one of these events in the past, by design, the agenda is fairly open. We want it to be whatever the maintainers are going to find valuable. So, we really look to, getting feedback about what to do. So yeah, any other thoughts or ideas, certainly welcome. And we will reach out to maintainers from other projects who aren't on this call. So this isn't the only opportunity to think about the agenda, but it is helpful to get some initial thoughts. Any other ideas or people who have gone to previous ones? Was there anything that you found particularly useful or would like to see us do again?
Yeah, actually, I can maybe just second that question, David. So I've not attended one of these before. I wonder if someone's able to give just a quick overview of what they kind of typically entail and try to cover.
And as far as what they typically entail, whoever's sharing the screen, is that you, Ryan? Do you mind just scrolling down? At the bottom of this page, we did link to the past events. If you're curious to see, they weren't always called Maintainer Days. You can see there's kind of some different names there. And you can see that there were a lot more pre-pandemic than post-pandemic. We kind of rebooted it last year, but all the other ones were kind of pre-pandemic. So if you want to see the history, you're welcome to go through. Yeah, and so for the people who are at previous ones, I guess Hart, maybe you've been to most, if not all of those previous ones. You want to share kind of some of your thoughts maybe, or for other people who've been to some of the previous ones?
Sure, I'm happy to. Um, yeah, I think I may have been to, well, not all of the Hackfests, but um, yeah, I mean, I really like these as an opportunity just to talk to people in person that you don't always have the opportunity to meet in person. Maybe you've gone over just Zoom. Um, so, you know, the agenda can be very ad hoc. Projects have any particular thing that they want to work on. That's great. Uh, so, it's really about what maintainers want to do and get together. I've seen projects put together. Um, I've seen just, general maintainer work done. It really ranges the gamut. And Tracy wants to say something. So go ahead, Tracy.
No, just when you were finished, Hart. No big rush.
I'm just rambling, so please go ahead.
Okay. Yeah, I think I've been to all of them except the very first two, so the one in New York and San Francisco. So they have somewhat changed. They've always, when they were in the Hackfest format, they always started with basically going around the room and having people introduce themselves. Quick, 1-2 sentence sort of intro as to why they were there. There used to be a lot of people showing up at the very early days that weren't even like part of projects. They just were interested in what was going on. I think that's, you know, been somewhat reduced because we've kind of limited them, as you will, when we started doing maintainer days, which, you know, is okay. I think, you know, having different ways of doing things is great. They have always been a fairly like open schedule. There's that sort of meeting. If anybody's been to the IIW, you know of these types of meetings. I always forget what they're called. Where basically the agenda is made on site as things go, right? So they're pretty open, free form, as well as what that agenda might look like. I think, you know, in the last couple of times we've tried to be a bit more specific about what might be discussed, just given you know, travel restrictions that companies have. Thank you, on conference. And so therefore, you know, I think that's why David and folks are asking, you know, what are things that might be of interest to have talked about. So there's at least some meat to the agenda, but yet there's still openness so that people can do what they want to do and talk about what they want to talk about. In the past, some of the things that have happened, like way back in the day, Sawtooth and Burrow got together and decided to bring the Ethereum virtual machine to Sawtooth. And I think that was kind of that initial sort of merging of projects, if you will. And I thought that was a really interesting thing where they basically sequestered themselves in a conference room and had, you know, lots of time to work together. And so I do think that bringing together projects is a really sort of useful thing that these sorts of events can bring to people. So if you're interested in, you know, say Firefly is interested in integrating with Hyro, that's a good time because the maintainers of both of those projects will be there, right? To have that discussion and at least get that initial face-to-face so that you, when you are now talking virtually, right? It's not so hard to have that conversation virtually because you've already, you know, met the person and know who they are and might not take offense to something that they might say that they're not really not trying to be offensive virtually, right? That sort of thing. So I think there's a lot of benefit to these sorts of events that are hosted by the Linux Foundation. And yeah, I mean, now I feel like I'm rambling, so I'm going to stop as well.
I will add one thing to what you said, Tracy. I mean, as you said, the agenda is open by design. The reason we didn't do full unconference was we found it was the feedback we heard last time we did this, that it's useful for somebody in terms of getting internal approval. It's useful if they can point to an agenda and say, look, I'm one of the speakers here. My name is here. I have a slot on the, you know, agenda and I'm a speaker. And so we wanted to, you know, help people with those internal conversations by having them on some sort of agenda. So if that is useful as well, like, hey, it's easier to justify traveling for an event if you can point to you being a speaker on it. We did want to go ahead and put some slots down and put people's names down so they could point to that. So just one thought about if that's helpful for you, you know, we could do that again this year. Hart, you have your hand?
Yeah, I was just going to say our tentative plan was to have a mix of, you know, planned talks and workshops and some unstructured time where people can collaborate on what they want.
Anybody
And
else
Matthew,
who's been...
yeah, I
Sorry,
was
go
going to say,
ahead.
Matthew, I don't know if that helped you to decide what sorts of things might go on there, but yeah, I think that's hopefully was helpful.
Yeah, very. Thank you. Yeah. And does it get communicated pretty widely around the different Discord channels and things? I guess this audience is a fairly small subset of all the maintainers.
Yeah, exactly. We'll do that. I mean, we wanted to share it here I just put this page together yesterday. We'll share it more widely, yes, with other maintainers going forward. We'll post Discord, we'll post on the project list. I'll put in the Dev Weekly newsletter. We'll do some individual reach out. So we definitely want maintainers to know about this.
Enrique?
Cool. Yeah, I think having an agenda is really useful, David. I think last time I think I had a session which obviously gave way for me to be there. I think one of the things we did last time that maybe we lost a lot of time on, I believe, was we went around the room and we wrote on a whiteboard what people wanted to achieve from the next 2 days, and then at the end of the 2 days, we spent another half an hour talking about have we achieved it. I wonder if we can do that before the event through voting or something for the people that want to attend, or what are the objectives, maybe like areas of interest, and then set an agenda from there. Because there's a very wide amount of topics that people are interested in, like privacy or interoperability or security or etc. And I think doing that in person was only the voices from that room, and we lost time in person. So doing that maybe asynchronously in some way would be useful, I believe.
All right, that's a good idea. I'm capturing that too. Yeah, some pre-work.
Yeah.
All right, great.
David, it might be worthwhile just to have a question on the registration form.
Yeah.
That is a required sort of question in order to get that information, right? I think sometimes if you do reach out after the fact, right, then you don't necessarily get everybody's opinion.
Yep.
Yeah, that's a good idea. And then we could maybe, yeah, as Enrique said, if we have people submit those things, then we could have some sort of vote on which of those are the top priorities. That's a good idea.
Yeah.
And this is several months out, so we'll certainly have an opportunity to talk about it more. I mean, I think just we do want to keep the TAC in the loop. Maybe, we could gather more feedback from other maintainers and then come back and, look at a draft agenda and kind of iterate on it with everybody here. So, there'll certainly be another opportunity to talk more. But if there are other ideas or suggestions now, happy to hear them. Okay, and if there's not other ideas right now too, again, we'll keep you in the loop. We'll let you know when registration's available, and when we know the exact location. But again, we have this page is on the wiki. Feel free to take a look, keep an eye on it, and then we'll communicate when there's new information.
All right, sounds good. Anything else on this topic? Nope. Okay. So then I think our next item on the agenda is TAC election planning. So yeah, obviously we're in September. I think we start the process of for the elections sometime in October. But I think, David and potentially Rye wanted to have a conversation here with the TAC about what that's going to look like. So David, did you have?
Yeah, right. Do you have the link, or here I can drop it? Do we have the link to the last year's process just so we can review it?
If you can drop it in chat, I mean, I could probably find it.
It's under the LF Decentralized Trust GitHub.io /governance.
Yeah, I'm pulling it up too. There we go.
Guidelines.
I think it's under member info.
Yeah, I just put it in the Zoom chat.
Okay.
So as Tracy was saying, we're getting to that time of year where we're going to have another election. So two thoughts I wanted to bring up today. One was just to let people know what's happening so you can start thinking about if you would like to nominate yourself again. We would certainly love to have everybody here nominate. Important to have your experience as an existing TAC member, carry over to next year. So we have that institutional, continuity and institutional memory. So just heads up that there'll be an opportunity to nominate soon. And then two, since you've gone through the election process before, we just wanted to see if you had feedback or ideas for us about the process. We could just copy what we did last time and run it again. But if you had thoughts or ideas about, things that might work better, just wanted to give people the opportunity to share. So, as a reminder, if you want to look through the process from last year, it is here on the governance site. But any ideas or thoughts or suggestions?
I mean, this was really just to, number one, get on the radar of the current TAC members. Number two, if you're running or you're not running, as you recall, the board last time was able to pick from a list that was distinct from the nominees list. So if you have people that you think would be amenable to running for running, the board does get a vote for 5 of the 11 seats. So if there are people in your community who you think would be a good addition, help us build that list. You know your communities way better than we do. So that's all.
Matthew.
Yeah, thanks. Can someone remind me, is there a maximum number of members of the TAC?
Yeah, it's currently set to 11, I believe is the number.
Yeah, it's 11.
We've had it be higher in the past, and then we lowered it. I think I have the history right. Is that correct, Tracy? We had it higher
Yeah,
than
it was 15 at one point. I think it's been 9, 11, and 15 at some point in the past. So yeah, it just depends, Matthew, on what it is that the charter says. And right now the charter says 11.
And forgive me, I should probably know this. Are we at capacity this year?
Yes, we have 11 people. Although, I think it's been a while since we've had 11 people on the call. But yeah, we do have 11 people who were nominated and successfully voted in.
Yeah, I guess what I'm thinking through is if there were people elsewhere in the community that we thought might be really good candidates to be on the TAC, it would probably be a case of potentially offering to step down in favor of someone else who you think would really be able to contribute well to it, rather than a change to the charter to increase numbers to allow additional members.
Yeah, and Matthew, I think, it's probably important to note, I think that every single election cycle, you've had, potentially up to 50% of the people who are part of the TAC that year decide because of whatever reason that they won't be able to participate in the following year. So it's not necessarily that they have, stepped down so a particular person could step up. It's that they stepped down because they couldn't do it anymore, and therefore somebody else ended up getting that slot, if you will.
Yeah, that makes sense. That's useful context. Yeah, I guess I'm thinking if I were to talk to people who I thought might be valuable members of the TAC, I don't necessarily need to plan to step down myself.
Yeah. I will tell you there will be one slot open at least next year. So
right.
Yeah, I don't know however many other people might not be, but there will be one.
Cool. All right, thanks.
Enrique.
Yeah, I just want to raise a point. Maybe I don't know how we feel about this one, but I'll throw it out there. So I remember last year, as part of the election, there was like an issue that you raised, and you wrote a profile about yourself and why you wanted to be in the TAC, which is good. And then there was some system where people would log in with a GitHub, had to validate that there were contributions to the LFTT, and then they had a form and they had to pick, right? And then a few weeks later, a few months later, there was an issue raised somewhere that announced the TAC election and where the results were. I wonder if there's like a more public way to do that. I don't remember seeing like percentage of contributors that voted or votes or progress. It was kind of like you voted somewhere, and then suddenly 3 months later there was a list somewhere. So I know we can make that more transparent using some of the technologies that we have inside our ecosystem. But yeah, just a thought out there to track that maybe a little bit there.
I can, the election period is, so yes, thank you for the feedback. One thing that you can do, I think, is while the election is ongoing, you personally can go revisit your ballot, and I think that shows the percentage that has voted. But one thing that I can do when I'm running the election is to get that percentage and post it somewhere publicly. The delay in the getting the results out was primarily around waiting for the board to have a meeting and run an election. I had not run that election because the board members don't use GitHub. So that's kind of part of that delay. But I think it's perfectly legit to ask for more metrics on how the election is going.
So right, the members election is that the board of the LFTT, they have to we need to put the results at the same time as the TAC votes.
I try
Which
to
they
be.
could, sorry, right. They cannot do that because they can only bring in an additional 5 people, right? It's not like they're voting for all 11. And so I think that's the biggest challenge, right? Is the fact that there's a voting period for both the maintainers, and then there's a voting period for the appointments from the governing board.
Oh,
There's,
sorry, I didn't realize that. So the members of the TAC are voted both by maintainers contributors to the LFTT project, but also by the governing board.
Correct.
yeah,
Correct.
maintainers pick 6 seats and the board picks 5.
And then we announce them once we have all of them. Or at least what we've done in the past is announce them once we've had all identified.
And the reason that I do that, and I'm willing to take feedback on this, and I've been very difficult with people that want me to release the exact vote tallies and this, that, and the other, is I don't want anyone, I don't want like anyone to think that they were better or worse because they won the maintainer election or they got picked by the board. And I don't want people to say, you only got in by 1 vote, you know, or anything like that. So that's why I have been, for the last little while, fairly opaque about the exact, like who got how many votes exactly. And all of that is available to me in the console. I can't see who, you voted for, but I can see what the vote totals are. I can see that you voted and I can see what the vote totals are, but I can't see who specifically you voted for.
Okay,
And
that makes sense, and that kind of changes my opinion on what I asked. So I didn't realize both public votes and board directors. So I now understand the less transparent way of releasing those results. So yeah, thanks for the context there.
sure. I just,
Yeah.
it's important to me that the election is run as, fairly and transparently as possible without causing further division.
Yeah, and I was just going to say, Enrique, you can still look at the last year's vote and see how many people voted. If you go to heliosvoting.org, vote.heliosvoting.org, because it basically keeps all of the elections that you ever were participated in there. So yeah, I mean, there is some information about that, but yeah. Right, it's probably not worth you opening it because you might see something that we don't want people to see.
Yeah, I know. I'm going to drag this tab off before I open it. I promise.
Okay, good. But yeah, anyway, there is some information there, like Rai said, for us to see as voters, right? But it's just like who's cast their vote and that sort of thing.
Sounds good. Thanks, Tracy.
Yeah. But I mean, I think these are interesting sorts of comments that are being made, because if there's ways that we can change the way that we do things, and maybe that's what we need to do, right? Is bring a request to the governing board that says, you know, hey, we don't want you guys doing stuff. We want to change the way this works so that we see the results sooner. We may decide, you know, to take to the governing board that maybe the makeup of the TAC with 11 people is not the right number, or the way that they're made up, right, with 6 and 5 is not the right number, or not the right way of doing things. So I think that's why we bring this up now, because we're like a month out from when the nominations typically start, to see if there's anything that, you know, we didn't really like about the way that things worked the last time, or that they're working now, so that we have an opportunity to potentially change that.
So I just wanted to show you that if you visit, this is the previous election, if you visit this page and click the login button, which I'm not going to do, you'll be able to see what's going on. So I will post a link to that in the chat, and you can see plenty of information there.
Yeah, and if you just go to the main votes.heliosvoting.org site, it lists all the previous, you know, places that you had an opportunity to vote in. So no worries.
Thanks.
Yep. Okay, somebody's throwing numbers at me. Yeah, I mean, there is a reason for the way that we do things now, with the separation for the governing board, and it's to ensure that, you know, one project doesn't have the majority of the seats, and that there is, you know, adequate representation from all of the projects, as much diversity as we can possibly get on the TAC. So there are reasons for doing things, so make sure we take those into account if we do suggest anything that might look different. Okay, anything else on the TAC election? You know, as you probably saw in that TAC election planning page, there was information about like the schedule, and the nomination period for last year started mid-October. So we would expect a very similar sort of timeline for this year based on what we did last year, because it seemed to work okay. Obviously, given the, you know, 3 months that you had to wait to get the results, but you know, it did seem to allow for enough people to come in and vote and do their thing. So if there's things that you didn't like about that schedule, other than that we might be able to change, definitely let Ryan and David know. Because, you know, now would be the time that they'll probably be creating a 2026 page for us as the TAC to approve.
Yeah,
Yeah.
exactly. Thank you for that, Tracy. Yeah, feel free to reach out. We'll probably wait a few days before we get it posted, so there's some time. But yeah, in the next week or so, we'll probably get this posted. So if you have ideas or suggestions, now's a great time to reach out.
All right, anything else on this topic before we hit our last topic for today? Okay, so this last topic is an idea that was brought to me about potentially coming up with guidelines about the criteria for maintaining project status. So obviously there's two things to take into consideration here. One is, you know, we just went through the HIRO graduation process to determine whether or not HIRO was ready for graduation. But there's also the aspect of, you know, both annual and quarterly reports. One of the things that we should be looking at is whether or not projects are in the right life cycle stage, if you will, and what it is that we should be looking for when we are going through those annual and quarterly reports for projects. Currently, we don't have anything that makes it easy for projects to understand if they're gonna, be in the right place or not. We did have some discussion about, whether or not the kind of moving between life cycle stages that we have in our project life cycle is too difficult for projects to understand, and what we should potentially do about that. And so wanted to see, if we could have potentially a discussion here on the TAC about whether it makes sense to be writing down some of the information in a more friendly format or in a different format, to make it easier for both us as a TAC and for project maintainers to understand, the sorts of things that they should be doing, that they may not be thinking about doing to keep themselves either graduated or moving towards graduation, as the case may be. So any thoughts? And Jessica, I think you were one who potentially brought this up, could be based on some of the work that you've been doing with Hyro. Anything you'd like to add to what I've said, that would help the TAC better understand some of the thoughts and concerns here?
So when I look at this topic, I think probably there's a section in the next steps of in the graduation report, right? In the project proposal, there's I believe there's a section there that says what are the next steps. So where's the project moving towards? So maybe like an update on what's happening in that perspective in the annual report will be a good idea, maybe, or something that is more backed up with metrics also could be a good idea.
Yeah, and you said something there, Jessica, that made me think about something else that I think we're missing, which kind of is part of this topic, which is part of the annual review. Maybe part of that should be like a checklist for the TAC members on what they should be looking for. And if it becomes a checklist for the TAC members, then maybe it becomes part of the annual review as well. So the things I'm thinking about is, if you remember when we went through the annual reviews for our projects, they were done in very different ways, right? Depending on who was doing it, they had a different idea about the sorts of things they should be looking for. And so maybe there's some consistency in what we should be looking for, that we should be writing down. Maybe it's you should go through the things that are part of the common repository structure and look for those things. Are they done for the project or not? Maybe it's that's part of it, but then there's also the part of, we have project incubation exit criteria. Maybe there's pieces there that we should be looking at and making sure that we understand whether a project's ready to move from incubation or not. We have things in the project lifecycle about the different stages and where you might move to based on, different OpenSSF scorecards. Should there be some sort of consistency for both projects and the TAC to be looking at around this particular topic? And so I think that's the reason for bringing this up, is just, we have a lot of different places, a lot of different ways of looking at things. Should we be doing something that would create consistency across the way that we do things and the way that project maintainers look at things?
Right. And actually, now that you mentioned the OpenSSF scorecards, I know that what the documentation suggests is that projects should be scoring like a perfect 10 in many situations, which is a little bit unrealistic considering some of the content in the repos for a project could be not it is not applicable to some of the content of the repos, right? Specifically documentation or blog style kind of repos. I don't know if we need to brush up the guidelines there as well. I know we were gonna work with the OpenSSF team to see if we can not only put the annotations to explain why the score, but also have a way to affect the score as well when it comes to things that are not applicable for a particular repo. But I think maybe brushing up on the guidelines or what the specifications regarding the score there should be could also be a good idea.
Yep. Any other thoughts on things that we might look at?
The only other thing that I was going to say is we're still, I think, struggling with the quarterly reports for specifications like the trust over IP.
Mhm.
So I think that once we get the trust over IP project across the first hoop or hurdle, that we may revisit, what we're looking for from specifications or standards.
Yeah. The other thing I was thinking about is I was part of the Open Wallet Foundation in its, initial phases, and on the TAC for the project lifecycle for them, there was a set of expectations that we had for each of the different stages. So labs, growth, and impact and emeritus stage. Those were the different stages that exist for the Open Wallet Foundation. And, they have a set of expectations for the project, as well as a set of acceptance criteria for them to go into that particular stage. That could be something that we take a look at. I think a lot of that was taken from CNCF when that was created. But, I do think that potentially that list of expectations and acceptance criteria might help us as a TAC to better, be able to answer the question, is this project in the right stage? Is this project ready to move on in the stage, in the life cycle, right? So yeah, I think that's kind of where we're getting to. Is there feels like there's a bit of space here for us to potentially think as a TAC about ways that we could do things potentially differently to both help ourselves and projects. Any thoughts on that? Okay, well, it might help if we can come up with. I think Diane, you said something about it when we were talking about the contributor side. It's easier to react to something that somebody's written down than it is to react to something that is not been written down. That is just some thoughts. So maybe it's best if we maybe take this back and do some work that we could bring to the TAC that they could react to, and then potentially have a further discussion on this topic. And I think, some of that may be as easy as just taking what we have and putting it on one page and, seeing what we might be able to do to make it better for people to understand. All right. So if there's nothing else then on this topic, is there anything else anybody would like to cover today? Okay, sounds like everybody's done. Since there's silence. So we will go ahead and close out today's meeting, and we will talk again hopefully next week. Thanks all.
Thank you.
Cheers, thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.
Bye.